What's up everybody, welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony, let's jump in. Happy Tuesday everybody, I hope you're all doing well. Of course, this week and for the last few weeks, the world's eyes have been on the Ukraine. I've seen many people argue that China and Russia are working together to launch a two-pronged offensive against the West. While this is of course possible, I think it is unlikely. I am more of the opinion that Beijing wishes to maintain its fair-weather friendship with Moscow that it doesn't fully trust as a diplomatic counterbalance to the US and the broader West. Russian intervention in the Ukraine creates all sorts of headaches for Beijing. It creates opportunities, but it also creates headaches. The big one being, of course, that it forces Beijing to pick between supporting Moscow or preventing the bottom falling out of its relationships with the US and the EU. Jude Blanchette of the Center for Strategic and International Studies articulates the dilemma Beijing faces best. If Russia invades Ukraine, Beijing could throw Moscow a lifeline, economic relief to alleviate the effect of US sanctions, but doing so would damage Chinese relations with Europe, invite severe repercussions from Washington, and drive traditionally non-aligned countries such as India further into the arms of the West. If Beijing snubs Moscow, by contrast, it may weaken its closest strategic partnership at a time when, given deteriorating security in Asia, it is most in need of outside help. Washington-based veteran China analyst Bill Bishop observed this morning, quote, "I do not believe that Xi and his team want to see Russia invade Ukraine, as they understand the risks from the expected reaction of any invasion." Over the weekend, Foreign Minister Wang Yi weighed in at the Munich Security Conference and said that the parties concerned should come back to the Minsk II agreement of 2015. End quote. Many US-based observers are arguing that the shift in tone coming after days of closed-door deliberations by top leaders in Beijing reflects China's desire to avoid an even more adversarial relationship with Washington that could cause China to be isolated from the West and hurt the country's development in the long run. Of course, this is just one perspective, but let's have a look at what the People's Daily wrote today. The language adopted by the state-run media is very telling, I think. Quote, "China always holds that all countries' sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity should be respected and safeguarded, and Ukraine is no exception to this principle." End quote. That is from state media, Central State Media today, and that is quoting basically what Foreign Minister Wang Yi said over the last few days. So again, this language is quite telling. Now, I have been reading the official statements coming from Beijing officials on the Ukraine crisis for weeks now. They do not sound like the confident statements or musings of a people with a master plan, but rather nervous verbal gymnastics to avoid offending Moscow, while at the same time not wanting an escalation. Okay, next up, Chinese economic and financial developments. We have a couple of key ones to cover today. This week, the National Development and Reform Commission, together with 13 other central government agencies, such as the Ministry of Finance and National Health Commission, issued special policies to, quote, "help the country's services sector better cope with the pandemic fallout, including tax relief and fiscal compensation, as well as prohibiting excessive disease control measures," end quote. This is the first mention of this prohibiting excessive disease control measures. Of course, we know from the last few months, many of these control measures have been incredibly disruptive and have hurt many small businesses and have affected the lives of millions of citizens. Analysts with Caixin observed that the policies come at a time when China's services sector, particularly medium and small businesses in catering, retail, tourism, and entertainment industries, have been, quote, "hit hard by some local governments' excessive one-size-fits-all measures to contain the COVID-19 virus and scattered outbreaks across the country." End quote. More on the outbreak shortly. The wealthy province of Zhejiang in the east, which hugs Shanghai, has rolled out a new policy in a bid to create jobs and find work for the glut of recent university grads who have trouble with employment. Recent university graduates who start a business in the province will be eligible for any business loan under 100,000 RMB. This is about $15,000 US, which can go a long way in China, and the government will cover the full loan loss in the event of a business failure. There's been a lot of attention from industry commentators about the integration of swappable batteries with new energy heavy trucks sold in China in recent months. Almost every new energy heavy truck sold in China last month had a swappable battery, in a sign, as one analyst put it, that Chinese fleet operations are embracing the technology to beat the traditional limits of electric vehicles and reduce their operating costs. Financial media outlet Yicai reports that all but 20 of the over 2,280 new energy heavy vehicles sold in January were equipped with a power replenishing system capable of replacing the exhausted battery with a fully charged one in just a few minutes. The network infrastructure is being built out for the technology too. Caixin reports that in January, GCL Energy Technology Co. Limited, a Shenzhen-listed company engaged in battery swapping, power distribution network, and electric trading, signed an agreement with Deepway Technology Co. Limited, a Baidu, this is China's answer to Google, backed developer of driverless commercial vehicles, quote, under which the duo would develop self-driving technology for battery swapping enabled electric heavy trucks used for long-haul trucking. End quote. The partners will build 10 battery swapping stations along the Beijing-Shanghai Expressway by the end of this year, for a fleet of approximately 100 electric heavy trucks. This will be expanded to 1,000 vehicles by the end of next year. Next up, Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's outbreak is at crisis levels. COVID-19 infections in the city reached a record high on Monday, with over 7,500 confirmed cases reported. According to the local Hong Kong Department of Health, Monday saw 13 more deaths registered, including an 11-month-old girl. The health system is currently overwhelmed, with hospital capacity at over 90% across the city. The Special Administrative Region Government also announced yesterday that vaccine passes, also known as vaccine passports, which will allow people to enter public venues, will be rolled out this Thursday. As we predicted 2 weeks ago, the mainland has sent teams to work with local Hong Kong government officials during the outbreak. One team of 114 members arrived on Saturday to Hong Kong, and more to come. We learned yesterday that authorities are planning to test each of the city's 7.5 million residents while turning hotels into isolation centers. However, this large-scale testing cannot start until the beginning of next month. With the massive increase in numbers by the day, a lot can happen between now and the beginning of next month, however. Meanwhile, the mainland is dealing with several outbreaks of its own across the country, with local cases being discovered in Suzhou, a few hours from Shanghai, Beijing, Liaoning in the northeast, Chengdu in the home of the pandas in the southwest, Yunnan in the deep south, Shenzhen bordering Hong Kong, and a city everyone is very familiar with, Wuhan. Last up, the Evergrande Housing Crisis. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button. It's a huge help for a small channel. And if you're watching for the first time and you're getting some value from the analysis, maybe consider subscribing. Okay, we have the latest home price data, which was published yesterday. China saw another month of house price declines, although the speed of the decline has eased for the second month in January, with some calling the news a rare sign of hope, perhaps light at the end of the tunnel. Others are simply calling it the eye of the hurricane or the great breath before the plunge. We will find out over the next few months which side is accurate. According to the new numbers published by the National Bureau of Statistics, home prices in 70 cities surveyed, excluding state-subsidized housing, fell 0.04% last month from December. This is a slower fall from December, when they dropped 0.28%. Home prices in secondary markets, these are second-hand homes, saw their sixth month of decline, with a more pronounced drop of 0.28%. As we know, sentiment in the home market is poor, with the housing crisis and developer after developer falling into default, denting buyer confidence in the sector. As we know, General Properties Group Limited late on Friday became the latest developer to warn that it may not be able to meet its financial obligations. And with the issues with Wanke, even state-backed firms are not safe bets for buyers. In a research note discussing the numbers, Chen Wenjing, Associate Research Director at China Index Holdings Limited, expressed, quote, "Home buyers are still in a heavy wait-and-see mode as price cuts in December extended to the new year. Many cities will likely remain lackluster this month. end quote. That's putting it mildly. Meanwhile, Heze, that's H-E-Z-E, Heze, a city of 8.2 million in eastern China's Shandong province, has become the first city to ease mortgage requirements for home purchases since the Evergrande crisis first blew up. The local branches of the 4 biggest state-owned banks all reduced the down payment ratio from 30% to 20% for first-time homebuyers. Banks in most Chinese cities currently require new buyers to put down at least 30% of the purchase price. A very high down purchase requirement is seen as the ultimate protection against financial crisis, as it forces households to front up a large stake in the assets, reducing the risk that they will simply walk away from it. This move from Heze will tempt other cities across the country to do the same, and continues to chip away at the flood barriers regulators have put in place to prevent collapse of the housing market on the demand side, as crisis continues to consume the supply side. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.